So what can we expect from Trump and the economy? No one really knows because what he says changes daily, but we have to make an educated guess. And here's mine. Well, the president's economic policies always have an effect on the economy, but in the last couple of years, the Biden administration hadn't followed any new policy initiatives, so the focus was very much on the Fed. Now all the eyes are on Washington, on the White House, and the administration. But we're very, very uncertain about what the Trump administration is going to do on tariffs, on deportations, and on tax policy.
If you don't make your product in America, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
President Trump has said a lot of things about tariffs, but a lot of the things they said are contradictory. Is being tough-minded on tariffs just a negotiating ploy to get foreign countries to make concessions, and then the tariffs won't actually materialize? My own view is that he means what he says in terms of increasing tariffs significantly. It's going to raise the level of prices, and it's also going to depress people's ability to buy goods and services because things are going to be more expensive. The Trump tariff increases in his first term were actually quite minor. Total tariffs went from 1.5% of imports to 3% of imports. And now he's talking about tariffs across the board, 10%, 20%. So the increases are going to be a lot greater. The bottom line for tariffs is bad for inflation, bad for growth, pretty bad for the economy.
We're going to close the border and we're going to get the crooked ones out, the bad ones out.
In terms of shutting down the border, he's definitely going to do that. But deporting millions of people that are already here, that's going to be very difficult to do logistically. So I think what's going to actually happen is that we're not going to be deporting all the people that are here illegally. We're going to be deporting the people here that are here illegally that have engaged in criminal activity. That's sort of the group of people that he's going to focus on. To the extent that Trump does deport people, it's just going to increase the tightness of the U.S. labor market. The labor supply in the U.S. is already growing very slowly because the President Biden, made it much more difficult to come across the border late in his term. But on top of that, it's important to recognize that the legal workforce in the U.S. is also growing very, very slowly, and that's because the baby boom generation is now retiring in earnest. So what it means is that even apart from deportations, the U.S. labor force is growing very, very slowly.
I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for American families, workers, and businesses that create jobs.
During the campaign, President Trump essentially almost promised tax cuts for everybody. I think the reality is we can't afford all that, and we're not going to get all that given that the U.S. fiscal outlook is terrible. We're running very large budget deficits, 6% of GDP as far as the eye can see. The fact that there's such a narrow margin in both the House and Senate, I think, really narrows President Trump's room for maneuver here. So I'm expecting the 2017 tax cuts to get extended. I'm expecting the state and local income tax deduction to be raised because this is a way of getting Republican votes for Republicans that are in blue states. But that's about it. I don't think we're going to get much beyond that. Well, I think President Trump has a problem because the economy objectively is actually in pretty good shape. He said that the economy is horrible and he's promised a much better economy. But the reality is it's going to be actually hard to improve the economy's performance very much from here. So it might have been a better strategy to reduce expectations and outperform. I think he's raised expectations, and I think it's going to be hard to outperform the expectations that he's put out there.